Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on. Car Accident by K. This might sound a bit unusual, but I felt really compelled to share this and see what others think. Everyone in my family has been in a significant accident at some point, each one pretty severe. My mom occasionally dreams about these accidents before they happen. While she can't see faces, she's able to pick up on specific details like the day, location, or even the cars involved. Recently, another strange incident happened. My mom had a dream about a horrific accident involving someone getting rear-ended. She remarked that in the dream she was looking down, and by the time she looked up, it was absolutely too late to stop. She said it was so bad that she thought it would result in the person losing teeth and being severely hurt. She also described the truck involved, an older white truck with a very distinct bumper sticker. Because of the vividness of her dream and my lingering trauma from my last accident, I decided to stay home and not risk being on the road. My mom, however, told some relatives to keep an eye out, as the dream felt eerily similar to her prophetic ones. Feeling unsettled, I went to my spiritual advisor, who told me that the dream wasn't about me. It was about my mom. My spiritual advisor said my mom was seeing through her own eyes, and that the dream was a serious warning. She urged my mom to stay off her phone while driving, as it's a bad habit of hers. My mom acknowledged it, but in true Aquarius fashion, she continued to do her own thing. Exactly a week later, my mom was at home, and while taking a nap, she got a message from someone talking about potential smoke coming from her office. Without hesitation, she jumped up, rushed to her car, and headed to the office. On the way, she kept checking her phone, trying to find out more about the issue. And just as she was checking and looking down, she looked up and found herself driving behind the exact truck my mom had seen in her dream. Same bumper sticker and all. For the remainder of the ride, she didn't dare look down. When she got to the office, there was no fire and no smoke. It turned out there was no reason for her to have gone in at all. Demons Attacking by Fate Did It All. I'm sharing this story to seek help if there is any. My story is pretty long and messed up, and it's probably all my fault. I have always been interested in everything beyond the veil. I got my first set of tarot cards at 13 and have always seen dark shadows and UFOs. When Ancient Aliens came out, I was obviously intrigued and soaked up any bit of information I could on the subject, including learning about women who mated with 4D light beings. I learned that I needed to become a medium to talk to these aliens, so that's what I did. The house we lived in at the time was over 120 years old, and sometimes we would hear a deep growling sound coming from the walls. One night, my husband and I heard it yell at our newborn baby to shut up. And sometimes we would hear something walking around the house. And one night, it even threw a heavy cast iron pan across the kitchen. We decided to move when we found a burned bandana sitting in the middle of the basement. We realized that was clearly meant as a threat. After the move, I got more heavily into New Age spirituality. I obtained what I thought was a spirit guide who appeared to me every night as a purple mist. It was clearly a man, and he spoke to me, gave me images of flowers and feelings of love and sexual energy. At one point, the spirit told me I needed to write him a love letter dedicating myself to him, and then sign it in blood. He gave me a symbol to write on it, which I have since learned is a symbol for Satan. My husband saw him too, sometimes, but he always gave my husband anger and hate, showing his face and telling him that I was cheating on him. I have never even considered cheating on my husband. My psychic powers were really good. I did readings on a regular basis, and I was told I was spot on every time. Sometimes, as I meditated, this man showed me symbols to draw and taught me how to do Reiki before I even knew what that was. He told me it was psychic energy healing, and with his help, I practiced it on my husband. One night, my husband was working late and I was lying in bed meditating when this spirit guide raped me. I became paralyzed and it fondled my body. It felt like static electricity running down my neck, around my breasts and bottom, and I felt it play with my lady parts, and it finished with quick penetration. I became very alarmed at that point and somehow broke through the paralysis screaming, "No!" This was not the first time it had physically touched me, but it was the first and only sexual assault. All the while, my husband and I were having dreams of being sexually assaulted by random people. I'd never had sexual dreams before that, and now it happens once a month. More on that later. I will add, though, that my husband and I at the time were having significant marital problems because of the anxiety and anger this thing made my husband feel. And we didn't realize at the time that it was actually psychic attacks. But after that, I was afraid. I trapped the spirit in a salt trap using a candle and called a local medium to help me get rid of it. The medium came to my house and told me I had a spirit husband who was very beneficial to me, but that the spirit hated my husband and would do anything it could to tear us apart. They opened a door and had me tell it to leave, and it stayed away for about a month. But then it came back. And I think it came back because I was still practicing mediumship and energy healing. 2 months later, I had a miscarriage that turned my whole world upside down. After the miscarriage, the activity increased. My husband and I would randomly hear a baby crying, and we would run to our son's room thinking it was him, but every time he was sound asleep. I had visions of a baby and once had a dream of myself lying naked on a cold metal table with an alien baby. Sometimes I would feel the weight of a child in our bed as I listened to the cries, and I developed significant depression, and my husband sought therapy for his anxiety. Eventually, we bought a different house and moved away, but everything followed us. We would hear little feet running upstairs, but our son was always asleep. At one point, my husband saw an apparition of a toddler in our son's room. My 4-year-old doesn't sleep through the night. He always says, "The ghosts are bothering me, Mom." I told him ghosts aren't real, but he told me once the ghost told him, "This is my bed, and get your hands off my toys." We also continued to see the purple mist. I saged my house and bought each of us onyx stones to protect us, and I tried to physically close all of the portals in our home and bodies, but to no avail. Obviously, only God was powerful enough to protect us. I turned to the Bible because things were now affecting my son, and I learned what I was doing was against God's word. So I threw out everything occult related and never practiced mediumship again. We pray as a family multiple times a day and have repented, and my relationship with my husband has greatly improved, and we fully dedicated ourselves to Christ. But the purple mist and the shadow toddler are still here. I need to mention too, my husband and I have been trying to have another baby for 2 years, but have come down with unexplained infertility. All of our levels are normal, but we continue to have rape dreams, and it's always on the day I ovulate. We also still experience psychic attacks. A few days ago, my husband saw the purple mist while falling asleep. It attacked him and punched him in the face. And then he fell asleep and had a dream where he was attacked, and the person told him, "What will you do once I take everything from you?" While he was asleep, he fought this thing off and won. But still, we can't get rid of these things. They're attacking my family, not allowing us to get pregnant, and I fear for my son. I wonder if we somehow conceived one of these weird spirit babies and have been marked for our involvement in the occult, even though we were ignorant to what we were doing. Anyone out there? Is there anything we can do? Summer Cabin by Fun Jaguar. I have a summer cabin built in the middle of the forest, and on this day in the daytime, it was going good. I was chopping up some wood and fixing up my bike, and then I had a great idea to take my tent and camp down at the beach. Since it was a good day, and I had nothing else to do, my family agreed. I got my bike fixed at like 6 p.m., and to let you know, this was in August, so it got dark really fast. And at that beach, there is the shore itself, but behind it was very thick woods, thick, dark, northern European woods. I gathered all kinds of things like logs and gas and food and started heading out. And I got a fire going, but realized that the 3 logs I brought wasn't going to cut it, so I started looking around for more sticks, and this was at the time it started to get dark. I was starting to wonder why my family wasn't there yet. Then I looked around and saw a light at the woods behind the shore and heard these weird, distorted sounds coming from there. So the idiot that I am, I decided to go investigate, and it turned out there was a trail that no one had ever seen before. So I biked around it for a bit and found some big sticks I could make smaller for the fire. But then I smelled a really weird smell, like rotten meat. At that point it was pitch black, and I had a headlight attached to my purple Lakers cap. Then I saw something with big antlers, but it was standing on 2 legs behind a tree, just watching me. I hopped on my bike as fast as I could, and then heard the loudest scream I had ever heard, and then galloping behind me. I pedaled out of there as fast as I could and heard something chasing me the entire time home. And when I got there, it was my family doing nothing. My grandfather was reading the newspaper, and my grandmother was drinking tea and playing Duolingo. When I asked where the hell they were, and why they didn't come down to the beach, they looked at me and said, "What do you mean, why didn't we come there exactly?" I talked about how we were all planning on going camping, and they looked at me like I was sick. Well, anyway, we went to sleep, and I slept on the 2nd story because there was a window I could look out of. I could see if anything tried to come, and we locked all the doors and kept quiet for the night. But nothing else happened. The next morning, I made my grandfather go out with me to the spot where the incident had happened the night before. I brought my .22 rifle with me, and I found the remains of something that smelled even worse than the night before. And I found a piece of some type of flesh or meat that was all gray and had multiple bones sticking out of it. I need to mention that this thing had the exact same shape of the creature's antlers that I had seen the night before. But nothing was there. No tracks, no nothing. Even the campfire I had put up was not there. And my tent was gone. Well, that's it. That's my story. I know some of you will try to tell me that I have schizophrenia, but I don't have any mental illnesses. Told by trained professionals, that is. Maybe this could be a sighting of the Jotun. Meanwhile, I have to mention I'm not even close to Sweden. I'm Estonian. For reference, I'm sharing a picture of the meat that I found out there. Stalked by Possible Skinwalker in Taos, New Mexico by new pattern. Some quick background. I was visiting the Southwest in 2021. I flew out to Tucson and stayed a couple of days, then rented a car and drove out to the Grand Canyon, then took Route 46 to Gallup and stayed there and ended my trip in Taos. I took most of the trip alone, but my boyfriend ended up meeting me for the time that I spent in Taos. He had never seen the Southwest, and as a 32-year-old woman traveling alone, he felt better accompanying me on the last leg of that trip. I have always loved Arizona and New Mexico since I was little. My grandmother has a trailer in Tucson that she would snowbird off to escape the Northeast winters. I would visit her and first stepped foot in New Mexico when I was 17. I fell in love with it. The energy is like no other. I respect the land and the culture out west, and try to stay humble toward the dangers as they are very different from New York and New Jersey. My boyfriend was not crazy about Taos. He said he felt strange and out of place there and inexplicably just depressed and down. I felt very good. I noticed an electricity in the air and I appreciated the overall spirit. On our last night, he wanted to check out Santa Fe, which he did love. We had a good time, but after dinner we had to start heading back because we had a very early flight home. We were driving back up towards Taos, and it was around 9:30 or 10, and we were talking and goofing around. Suddenly, he decides to say the word you're not supposed to say, and I made him promise not to say it here. But he did it anyway and started laughing. I was very upset with him. I said that it was disrespectful to dismiss things that he knew nothing about, but he just brushed it off and said it was all a bunch of lore and nothing was going to happen. We were staying in an old 1960s trailer out in a wide open pasture. Other trailers were sprinkled around, but it's fairly remote. We got back around 11 and we packed for the early flight. And by the time we got to sleep, it was midnight, and we realized that we'd be taking more of a nap than actually getting sleep. Lucky for me, I am a deep sleeper, so I passed out right away. But around 2 or 2:30, my boyfriend woke me up, and I noticed he was talking fast and was anxious with a lump in his throat. "Get up. Come on, get up. We have to get out of here." I thought at first it was because maybe we had overslept and he was anxious about missing our flight. But it wasn't until I saw his face in the dim light of the wall sconce that I saw he had terror in his eyes. His eyes were wide and watery, and he looked like he was about to crack the fuck up. Now, he's a big, tough Italian Puerto Rican dude who's not really afraid of much. And I looked at him and said, "Is everything okay?" He said, "No. It's not. I'll tell you when we get to the car. I can't tell you now. I can't tell you until we just get out of here." Well, now I was a little freaked out. We packed our suitcases in the car and headed out on our 3-hour trip to Albuquerque. And I said to him, "What happened to you?" He told me he was trying to fall asleep, and just as he drifted off, he awoke to someone whispering. He got up and looked out all the windows to see if anyone outside, but there was no one there. He got back in bed and started to hear footsteps outside, and the whispers got louder and louder. He said they sounded like they were almost surrounding the trailer, swirling and whispering around like dry leaves on a fall day. Then, the most terrifying part, he said, were the footsteps. They began to move to the roof. He said something was walking on the aluminum trailer's roof, and he sat there stiff as a board as it went on for the entire 2 hours that I was asleep. As we were driving, it was pitch black, and I felt like something shifted in the air. The beautiful canyons we drove through just yesterday began to take on a new meaning. The night felt extra dark, and the energy just felt very wrong. I don't know if we were just extra jumpy, but cars would just appear out of nowhere behind us, and then pass us or disappear. At one point, as we rounded a bend, we saw a huge elk standing proud on the side of the road. He didn't appear as if he was trying to cross the road. He was just standing there still, almost acting as a guardian to the canyons. I mean, he looked like the king of the majestic. I looked at our gas gauge, and it was getting uncomfortably close to empty. A rookie mistake to think that we'll just get gas on the way to the airport applies the same way as it does back home. My boyfriend started freaking out. I told him when we got closer to Santa Fe we would see more open and functioning gas stations, and just as I said that, the gas light came on. As we got closer to Santa Fe, I realized I was wrong. Every station we saw was closed. Pumps turned off, everything dark. I started to get nervous. And finally, after nearly 2 hours of riding on empty, we found a station. I went into the store to get a coffee, and I was very groggy and wobbly, but feeling strange at the moment I went inside. The counter woman, who was native, looked shaken and appeared to be watching me the entire time. I was getting coffee and trying to find the right size lid, and I saw her watching me from the other side of the cups. When I turned, she looked the other way, but her body language was upset. I asked my boyfriend if he had had the same experience as I did when he came in to fix his coffee and pay for the gas, and he said he did. Even stranger was that he saw an elderly native man that was leaning against the counter, just silent, watching him and his every move. He went to the coffee station, and the man turned and watched him. He said the elder man's body language appeared to be much calmer than the woman's. And the thing is I was very hyper-vigilant in the gas station, but I don't recall ever seeing that man. My boyfriend, to this day, swears the man was there just watching, and he can't believe that I never saw him. Anyway, we got to the airport, and the strangeness stopped as soon as we boarded our flight. The whole night seemed to be a long, strange fever dream. I'm just looking for insights. I'm fairly certain what we experienced was what I think it is. I'm curious about that man in the gas station, and I wonder if the man and the woman knew what was happening to us. I think I was supposed to die this morning by Agile Guard. So this happened to me today. To give some context to the story, I wake up at 3 a.m. and have about a 30-minute drive to get to work. I usually try to leave my house around 3:30 so I can arrive at 4. And I also want to add in that I'm not super religious and rarely ever pray. However, I do believe in God. I woke up this morning at 3 a.m., and the first few minutes of me waking up felt normal. I looked through the crack of my curtains where I could see the lamppost light hitting my neighbor's house. And I don't know why, but after I looked out, I just started feeling this horrible sensation of impending doom. It was very strange to me. I've been waking up at 3 a.m. for almost 3 years and have never had any sensations of fear upon me. I tried to shake off the feeling and proceeded to go to the restroom and get ready for work. But as soon as I re-entered my room, that overwhelming sensation came back. My mind was just telling me something doesn't feel right about today. I feel like something is going to happen to me, or someone close to me. I finished getting ready, and before I left my house, I did the sign of the cross, grabbed my keys, and headed out the door. I walked towards my car and heard all the nature sounds like bugs and whatever's up at that time making noise. Then I turned on my car when I realized I forgot something in the house. I took off my house key from my car keys and left my car on and just headed inside real quick. As soon as I stepped outside of my house the last time, it was complete silence outside. My car was the only thing I could hear. I found it strange, but I shook it off thinking I was just being paranoid. I started driving and everything was fine. I was driving while listening to music, and I started getting closer to an intersection. From a distance, I saw a semi pulling up to the intersection, and I got closer. My gut feeling told me to start slowing down even though I was on the highway and had the right of way. I was going around 70 or 80 miles per hour. I saw the truck pull up to the stop, and as I was getting closer and slowing down a bit more, the truck almost crossed the road until they noticed my car driving closer to the intersection. My mind kept racing and wondering, what if I had left for work a minute sooner? What if I hadn't have forgotten something inside my house? What if I hadn't done that quick sign of the cross before leaving my house? Would I have been in an accident? Would I have died this morning? Uncle Josh note here. Yeah, man, those feelings can be weird. I had some friends who lived in New York and New Jersey during 9/11, and a number of their families had strange feelings that morning. And some of them didn't go into work. One of them actually was working in the World Trade Center when that happened, and for whatever reason just didn't go into work that day, on a whim, on a strange feeling that he had that morning. Pretty creepy stuff, and I'm glad you're okay. Hey there, gang. Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncle Josh's True Scary Stories. If you have a true scary story of any nature that you'd like to hear narrated, email it to unclejoshtruescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. If you have a second, please give this video a thumbs up if you like it and leave a comment. Love to know what you thought of the stories. Follow me on social media and consider subscribing to the channel as well. If you'd like to take your support of the channel a bit further, find a link to my Patreon page in the description, and consider purchasing some Campfire Crew and Uncle Josh merchandise. There's a link to my storefront at tpublic.com in the description as well. Everyone, be excellent to each other. And until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything. A ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.